So chapter 27 of the Cambridge curriculum of advanced level economics is talking about a restriction on free trade. So by the end of the lesson, we are supposed to know what is free trade, what are restrictions to free trade, reasons for restriction, types of restriction, and the impact of restriction to nations. So free trade is the free movement of products or of goods and services between countries. Free trade is supposed to be the freedom of movement of products or of goods and services between countries, the freedom of trading between countries. It means there will be no barriers to trade. And the comparative advantage explains that some countries produce certain products at very low cost than other countries. So it means there's supposed to be freedom of these low produced products to other countries so that they too can benefit from the lower cost of production. But it is not so. Many countries in the world use economic policies to control or to regulate the movement of goods and services into and out of their country. Those economic policies are what is known as protectionism in economics. Protectionism are economic policies used to regulate the flow of product from one country to another. Now, why? Why do countries restrict trade or regulate the movement of goods and services into their country? Now, let me remind you, when export is more than import, it is called balance of trade surplus. But when import is more than export, it's called balance of trade deficit. So most countries don't want balance of trade deficit. So they control what enters into their country and the quantity that comes into that country. The first reason is because they want to protect infant industries. What are infant industries? Infant industries are those newly established industries in countries. So if an industry is newly established in a particular country producing a particular product, the government will control the quantity of that same product coming from other countries in order for these newly established industries to breed or to have the platform to grow. So the government, the country will do everything possible to protect this newly established industry for it to grow, to meet with the demand of that product, and also to meet with stiff competition of other industries in other countries producing that same product. So the first reasons why nations will restrict trade or will regulate the flow of trade between countries is to protect infant industries. That's the first. The second is to protect domestic industries. Domestic industries are industries that are operating within the boundaries of a particular country. Now, the reasons why countries will protect domestic industry, at least for the purpose of protecting the jobs or employees of that industry, because if the country freely allow the import of that same product of domestic industry, it means there will be a fall in the demand for the product of domestic industry in the favor of the imported product, which we know will be sold on a very low cost. And according to the law of demand, it states that consumers are only willing to buy when these products are low down, when the prices are low down, when the prices are high. So there will be no citizen who will see a foreign product that is cheap and will allow it or will prefer a home product that is expensive. So in order for the government to allow domestic industry to breathe and also for its employees to be sure that their jobs are protected is to restrict the flow of the product of those domestic industries from other countries into their country. So the first is to protect infant industries. The second is to protect uh, domestic industries. Now, the third is also to protect national security, because if the borders are controlled on what enters into the country, of course, ammunitions will not come into the country, weapons will not come into the country, expired product will not come into the countries. Countries that will affect the life and properties of the nations will not be imported to the country. So the third reasons why the government will restrict trade is because they want to protect the national security. The fourth reasons why the government or many nations will protect trade or restrict trade is to avoid dumping. What is dumping? Dumping is when products are sold to other countries at a lower cost than they are sold in their home countries. And there are many reasons why foreign companies going into another country will sell their product on a very low cost. Number one is to kill the domestic industry. to kill the product of domestic industry because, like I said before, customers are only willing to buy when the prices are low. So if they bring their product on a very low price, of course, they will kill the demand. The demand for home industry, industrial products will fall. Secondly, maybe they didn't have enough markets in their home country to sell the excess product they produce. So they are bringing them excessively to sell in other countries. They have to reduce the price. The third reasons for dumping is maybe the products are near expiration of the date of where they are supposed to expire. It's almost maybe like 5 or 6 months. So if these products are allowed to enter into a country, they should be sold at very low cost in order to empty the the stock of that product. So these are four reasons. Number one, to protect infant industries. Number two, to protect domestic industries. Number three, to protect national security. Number four, also to protect dumping. Okay, so now the last one, which let me just add one of the reasons why the government will restrict trade, is also to avoid a balance of trade deficit. Of course, balance of trade deficit is when the import is more than export. It affects the economy of every country. So most countries will prefer that the export should be more than the import in order to ensure a balance of trade surplus, which will contribute to the gross domestic product of that country, to the GDP. So those are the five reasons why most countries will restrict trade: to protect infant industries, to protect domestic industries, to protect national security, to avoid dumping, and also to avoid a balance of trade deficit. So those are the five ways, or the five reasons. Now, what are the types of restriction on free trade? The first type of restriction on free trade is called tariffs. What are tariffs? Tariffs are taxes imposed on imported products. Tariffs are taxes imposed on imported products. So the government will make sure that those taxes are very high so that it will discourage foreign companies from bringing their product into that country. So if a country is operating on a very high import tax rate, it will discourage most foreign companies from importing that product into their country. And the reasons why they will increase these taxes is to raise revenue. Of course, what is government revenue? Government revenue are the amount raised by government in all sectors to, for the government to be able to meet up with its daily expenditures. So the government need to increase those tariffs in order, first of all, to reduce or to discourage import. And even if they will import, it will be a medium to raise revenue for the government. Now, the second type of restriction is quotas. What are quotas? Quotas is limiting the quantity of import of certain product into the country. For example, if before maybe the most industries from other countries used to import 20 tons of rice into a country, and there's a home industry producing rice, there are domestic industry producing rice, the government may decide to limit the quantity imported maybe to two tons or 3 tons. So that is the second method of restriction. Then the third method of restriction is embargo. What are embargoes? Embargoes are complete ban of certain product into a country. There are complete ban of certain product into a country. The government may just decide to place a ban, or the country may decide to place a ban that they don't want to see this product in their countries. And the reasons why they will do this, if they place a ban on imported product, it means they have to subsidize home industries for them to grow to meet up with the demand for that product. Like I've given an example of rice. In nations where rice is highly consumed, the government need to subsidize home industries producing rice in order for them to meet up with uh, the demand for rice in their countries. So we have talked about tariffs, we have talked about quotas. I said quotas is the reduction of the quantity imported. We have talked about embargoes, which are complete ban. Then the government may also use bureaucratic procedures. What are bureaucratic procedures? The administrative, the documentation that you need if you bring a product, the procedures you need to follow in that country before you can be allowed to sell the product in that country. The government or many countries will make it very complex in a way that it will destroy or it will discourage many people from bringing their product into that country. So these are the four easiest types of trade protectionism or trade protections that most countries use. They use tariffs, they use quotas, they use embargoes, and they use bureaucratic procedures or administrative procedures. Now, finally, what is the impact of protectionist policies to countries? How does it impact nations? The protectionist policies have an impact on consumers, producers, workers, the government, and living standard of the people. So it has an impact on the producers, it has an impact on consumers, it has an impact on the government itself, and it also have an impact on the living standard of citizens. Now, to consumers, what are the impact? Protectionism tends to harm the interests of consumers. Either they are unable to buy imported goods at a lower price than goods produced domestically, or they suffer restriction on the range of goods being offered to them for sale, because normally consumers enjoy varieties. you know when there is freedom of trade, one of the benefits of it is that there is choice, there are excess consumers are allowed to make choice out of alternatives, because there are many types of products. There are different companies bringing out a particular type of products. So the consumers are free to choose. But if there's trade protections, consumers don't have choice. They are forced to consume what they have, either domestically or what they produce domestically. There's no choice. But to producers, domestic firms can both gain and suffer from protectionism. If their domestic markets are threatened by imports, then protectionist policies can help to improve their operations. This means higher output will mean higher sales within the confines of that country. But equally, if they benefit from measures to encourage export, then their output and profit should be higher. However, time domestic producers could also become very less. Now, what are they trying? What am I trying to explain? I'm trying to explain if uh, imported products are threatening the demand of home products, there's a need for that country to stop the importation of that product so that the home product can be highly consumed. But another way around, if a particular product is banned from entering into the country, it means that country don't also have access to import to export that product into another country or into that same country. So it means in a place where there is excess of home produced product, there will be no market for those products to be sold. So they will be stocked in the warehouse. There will be excess supply over demand, which will lead to surplus of that product into the country. So it will affect home industries in that line, and it can also benefit home industries if there is trade protectionism. So that is um, for producers. Now, for workers, protectionist policies will help them because it will protect home industries and their jobs will be secured. You say, but in another way around, if there is surplus, like I explained before, of that product, and there is no enough market to sell that product, it means there will be surplus of that product in the warehouse, which will affect the profit margin of most companies or most industries. And these are the reasons why sometimes you will hear that an industry has taken the decision to make redundant many of its employees. This is because these are periods where the industry is not making any profit, so there will be no need for them to keep a huge number of workers where it's not making profit. So in that case, they may decide to send some workers away, which will affect the life of workers. So trade protectionism can either benefit workers and it can also affect workers. Now, for the government tends to benefit in the short term from protectionism policies. If tariffs are imposed, they gain more because revenue will increase. If jobs are protected, they don't lose the taxes paid by those people, they also receive taxes from workers. The government can lose out if protectionist policies result in an inefficient economy where growth is restricted. So, trade protectionism can also lead to a fall in the economic uh, activities or economic situation of a country. And if this happens, it affects the government. Then, for the living standard of people, for the living standard, protectionism in a short term, many people living standard will be increased or will be high. However, if protectionism leads to less efficiency, slower growing economy in the long run, then there will be a negative impact on the living standard of the people. This is how it works. There's no magic in it. There's no magic in it. So this is the end of the lesson. Like I said before, we have seen what is trade, what is free trade. We have seen economic policies, which are the restriction or trade protectionism. We also saw the reasons why there's trade restriction. We talk about protection of home industries, protection of domestic industries, protection of national security, to prevent dumping and to also avoid balance of trade deficit. Then we also saw the types of restriction. We talk about tariffs, we talk about quotas, we talk about embargoes, and we talk about bureaucratic procedures. Then finally, we saw the effect of protectionism to consumers, to the government, to workers, and to the living standard of nations. So this is where we end today. Follow us in our next class. We are always here. My name is Mr. Chris. You are free to reach me anytime, any day for online lessons, for on-site lessons, if you are within the boundaries of the country where I presently reside. Thank you very much. Thank you for following.